Mother and her 2 children are dead tonight after police say they went over a guardrail and into the rapids over Niagara Falls.
You could hear 1,000 voices saying, "Oh my God."
There is something hypnotic about Niagara Falls. The sound, the speed, the endless drop. But wherever beauty is powerful, danger follows closely behind. Countless people have stepped too near the edge thinking they would be fine. They were wrong. Some wanted fame, some wanted escape, some simply made one wrong step. These stories are not for the faint of heart, and the last one will leave you silent as a man shows no fear while drifting toward his final plunge. Number 10. George Stathakis. A single bold decision can pull someone toward greatness or tragedy before anyone sees it coming. George A. Stathakis dreamed of more than ordinary life. He had moved from Greece to live in Buffalo in New York, where he worked as a chef. He was in his mid-40s and unmarried, but his mind was always somewhere else. He believed he had deep knowledge about life beyond the physical world, and he had written books on those ideas. What he did not have was the money to publish them. So he came up with a plan that he believed would change everything. George was convinced that going over Niagara Falls inside a large protective barrel would make him famous. The attention would help him get his work into the world. He shared his idea with friends, and they helped him build a huge barrel made of strong wood and steel. It stood around 10 feet in length and more than 5 feet wide. It weighed close to a full ton. George saw this as a shield that could handle the violent drop. A local expert named Red Hill Sr. tried to talk him out of the attempt. Red Hill said the barrel was too large and too heavy. George listened but never changed his mind. On a summer day in early July of 1930, George climbed into the barrel with his pet turtle named Sunny. The turtle was believed to be around 150 years old. People watching must have held their breath as the powerful river pulled the barrel toward the edge. It dropped with unbelievable force. Against all the odds, the barrel made it to the bottom mostly intact. Anyone who saw it from a distance might have thought the stunt was a success. That hope did not last. The currents behind the falls twisted the massive barrel and held it in a deadly trap. It could not break free. Teams rushed to help, but the fierce water made the rescue almost impossible. Hours passed before someone finally reached it and pulled it out. Inside was George. He had not survived. It was said that he suffocated before help could arrive. Sunny the turtle somehow lived through everything. Today, the same barrel that carried George to his final moments can be seen on display in Niagara Falls. Many who look at it think the size that was meant to protect him may have been the very thing that kept him trapped. Number 9. Red Hill Jr. William Red Hill Jr. grew up in a world where the river shaped identities. His father, William Sr., had become a well-known figure around Niagara for rushing into danger to save lives. People admired him for stepping into the fierce currents and pulling others out. Even with that reputation, he never dared to go over the falls. He understood how unpredictable the water could be, and once warned a daredevil to stay away from the idea completely. His son watched all of this from the shoreline, and every memory built a pressure inside him. While the hill name carried respect, it also carried expectation. Red Jr. worked beside his father and helped many people in trouble. He could swim through wild currents that most people would not even step near. He took part in stunts that should have built his own name. Yet the world never looked at him the way they looked at his father. Time moved on, and fame did not follow. His attempts always felt like they fell just short of the attention he needed. By the early 1950s, his life became heavier. Bills and failed investments drained him. The family legacy that once felt like a source of pride now felt like a weight he could not shake off.
His father shot the rapids in Niagara River 3 times, and Red's trying too.
He needed something big, something that would make the newspapers look at him as the one who carried the Hill legacy forward. That is when he came up with a strange idea to ride over Niagara Falls in a new device. He called it The Thing. It looked like chaos held together after a long struggle. 14 large inner tubes taken from truck tires sat inside thick canvas held down with a strong net. More inner tubes packed the ends like a seal.
Rubber barrel made of 14 tubes bound with fishnet, which he believes will take him safely over Niagara Falls.
He strapped himself inside with even more tubes to keep him secure. Red believed air might become an issue, so he carried a hose and mask just in case the river pulled him under for too long. He spoke with reporters and joked that if the wind helped him and luck stayed on his side, he would make it through. On the afternoon of August 5, 1951, he launched from a point about 1 mile above the falls. The river grabbed the thing right away and dragged it toward the drop. People watched as it reached the edge and vanished under the heavy white mist. Minutes passed before the remains showed up again. The device had been torn apart. The only sign of red was his shoes still inside. Early the next day, on August 6, 1951, searchers recovered his body from the river. His lower body was badly damaged, and there was a deep cut across his forehead. His death created anger in the community. People demanded change, and the government listened. The Premier of Ontario ordered that anyone trying stunts in the park should be arrested before they reached the water. No one has received permission for such daring acts there ever since. Number 8. Kirk Jones.
Niagara Falls believes they may have captured on camera the last few moments daredevil Kirk Jones was alive.
He once walked away from death, and that strange victory kept pulling him back toward the edge. Kirk Jones from Michigan first made headlines in 2003 after a fall that should have ended everything. He went over Niagara Falls from a height of 167 feet without any protective gear. People were shocked when he survived with only minor injuries. His family explained that he did it as a daredevil stunt, but Kirk later told people he had actually tried to end his life. He said afterward that he felt extremely happy to still be here.
It was a glassy, surreal experience, and so loud and thunderous.
He also promised that he would never attempt something like that again. For a while, cameras followed him. Interviews, news reports. Everyone wanted to hear from the man who lived through what most could never imagine. But attention fades quickly. The fame slipped away, and trouble arrived in its place. Officials charged him for performing a banned stunt and causing trouble. He pled guilty, received a fine of $4,000, and promised he would never again step foot on the Canadian side of the falls. Even so, he never truly let go of the falls. It was almost like he believed the place understood him better than anyone else. He spent years thinking about a return, and this time, he wanted a show. He imagined that if he survived once more, it could lead him into entertainment and prove that he was capable of escaping death twice. His idea was unusual. He bought a huge plastic ball, the kind people use for zorbing when they roll downhill inside it.
And I think it's just a part of our culture to try new things, try crazy things and zorbing.
He thought that if the ball could roll with the water, it might protect him when he went over the falls. One day in April of 2017, Kirk arrived at the American side of Niagara Falls with his pet boa constrictor named Misty. He launched the ball into the fast-moving river. Witnesses watched the ball spin as it moved toward the drop. The roar of the falls grew louder until the ball disappeared completely. When the ball was found later, it held no one inside. Search teams rushed to the river, hoping he might survive again. More than a month later, on June 2, 2017, his body was recovered about 12 miles downstream. Misty, the snake, was never found. Kirk Jones tempted fate one time too many, and the water chose the ending. Number 7. Robert Overacker. Back in 1995, a man named Robert Overacker arrived at Niagara Falls with a plan he had built up in his mind for a long time. He wanted to do something that would catch the eye of the public and shine attention on homeless people who were struggling out of sight. His idea was not simple. He would ride a jet ski across the rushing river toward the edge of the Canadian Horseshoe Falls. Once the jet ski went over, he would leap off and trigger a rocket-powered parachute strapped to his back. He imagined the chute opening smoothly so he could drift down while thousands of tourists watched. Even the message printed on the jet ski read, "Save the homeless," to be sure everyone understood his cause. Robert was not alone that day. His brother and a close friend were by his side with cameras ready to film every second. They probably felt excited and nervous as they watched him rev the jet ski and start moving toward the edge. The falls were powerful. More than 1 million gallons of water crash over every second. The drop below was about 167 feet. It was a fall strong enough to break bone and crack solid wood if the landing goes wrong. Crowds gathered along the viewpoint. Reports later said that as many as 3,000 tourists stood nearby. Some cheered, some held their breath. Robert looked confident as he picked up speed, heading straight for the point where the calm surface suddenly disappeared into a violent drop. He jumped from the jet ski just as he approached the edge, and he reached for the cord that was supposed to release his parachute. People watched closely, waiting for the chute to spread open like a white shield in the air, but nothing came out. The parachute did not deploy. Those watching froze in horror, including his brother and friend who had tried before to talk him out of stunts like this. There was no second chance. The water below struck like a wall. Rescue teams searched quickly. Robert's body was found far below the falls, and he was taken to Greater Niagara General Hospital. About an hour after the stunt, he was pronounced dead. Officials later noted that he became the 15th person since 1901 to intentionally go over the falls in or on a device. Niagara had taken another life, and the cause he hoped to raise slipped away in the mist. Number 6. Ayano Tokumasu. The sound of water roaring over the edge of a waterfall can make anyone feel unstoppable, and that is how one young traveler seemed to feel the night everything changed. It was August 14, 2011 at Niagara Falls. The summer evening felt alive with energy as lights shimmered over the rushing river and tourists gathered for photographs. Among the crowd was a Japanese student named Ayano Tokumasu. She was only 20 years old and had been in Canada for 2 weeks studying English at a school in Toronto. She came to the falls with classmates hoping for a weekend filled with fun and unforgettable views. As the day faded into night around 8:30, she moved toward the edge of Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side. The air felt cool and misty. People stood shoulder to shoulder, each person trying to capture a perfect memory. Ayano wore a red sweater and carried an umbrella. She wanted a photo with only the river and the endless drop behind her. Surveillance cameras later showed her climbing over the protective stone railing. She sat with one leg on each side while her friend lifted a camera. Only 24 meters from the point where the water rushes over a 167-foot drop, the current there can pull anything forward within seconds. Ayano seemed calm at first, while she looked down at the powerful water below. She then tried to climb back over. In that split second, her foot slipped on the wet stone. Witnesses saw her fall into the river and struggle briefly before the strong current took control.
She was sitting sort of right here. She had one leg on either side, straddling this post.
Shouts echoed as she was swept toward the edge. She vanished into the darkness and the spray below. Park staff moved fast and called responders who arrived with boats and helicopters. For 4 days, they searched the lower Niagara River, but the violent water made everything challenging. On August 18th, an employee at a nearby attraction on the American side noticed a body floating and alerted authorities, who confirmed it was Ayano. Later, a couple from Canada learned they had taken a photo that unknowingly showed her standing on the railing. They said the discovery gave them chills because they wished they had realized the danger. Her classmates in Toronto spoke about her cheerful spirit and made a book of messages to honor her. Her social media showed someone who loved adventure and wanted to enjoy every moment. Another official explained that millions visit each year and said cases like this almost never happen. Her death became a painful example of how a place of beauty can quickly turn into danger. It changed many who heard. Number 5. Chianti Means. The night air at Niagara Falls carried the usual mix of excitement and mist, but something far more disturbing was about to happen near Luna Island. Visitors looked out at the dark water, unaware that a mother and her 2 young children were making their way toward the rail that protects people from the deadly drop. It happened on the night of October 28, 2024, at about 9 in the evening. Passers-by suddenly noticed movement where no one should be. Chianti Means, a 33-year-old mother from New York, brought her 2 children with her. One was only 5 months old. The other was 9 years old.
They think that the mother and her 2 kids here purposely went over the falls there, and we also know that this all started around 9 p.m. on Monday.
Police said the 3 of them crossed over a safety guard rail and went over the falls. There was no time to stop what followed. The powerful current swallowed them within seconds, while stunned visitors struggled to understand what had just happened. Search and rescue teams rushed in, but the water below is fierce. Visibility drops fast near the base of the falls. The mist clouds everything, and the rocks make every move dangerous. After hours of effort, they found nothing. The current may have carried the bodies farther down the river, and that made the search even more difficult. Authorities later confirmed that the location sits on the north side of Goat Island, between the American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls. The place has strong security features meant to prevent exactly this kind of event. A state trooper explained that it was not a simple accident. It did not look like they slipped. As days passed, investigators worked on gathering personal information and trying to understand what she might have been facing. Chianti's LinkedIn profile revealed she was a domestic violence counselor and had graduated from a school in Buffalo. Soon, friends and relatives began sharing their grief online. One friend wrote that she could not sleep because the news hurt so much. She shared how mental health can be frightening. Detectives also uncovered posts that Chianti had shared online. The messages showed her heartbreak and loneliness after separating from the father of her children. Police said the man was not suspected of being involved. The weight she carried remained known only to her. Search teams stayed on the river, but never found the bodies. The falls kept rushing as families continued to visit the area unaware of what took place. Those who know the details now understand how unexpected pain can appear in a place known for beauty. Number 4. Charles Stevens. There is something chilling about watching someone look at danger and believe they can win. Charles Stevens arrived at Niagara Falls in the summer of 1920, with that belief guiding every step he took. He was 58 years old, a father of 11 children, and a barber from Bristol in England who had earned a reputation in Europe as a fearless stunt performer. People called him the Demon Barber of Bristol. This was because he jumped from terrifying heights and made daring parachute landings. Now he wanted to add Niagara to his legacy. Stevens wanted the same recognition that Annie Taylor and Bobby Leach had gained after going over the Horseshoe Falls and surviving. Both warned him to be patient and perfect his barrel before attempting the stunt. Stevens ignored them. He thought they hoped to stop him from reaching the same fame they enjoyed. William Red Hill Sr., who knew the river better than almost anyone, begged him to send the barrel over the falls empty first to see if it could withstand the violent impact. Stevens refused again. His mind was made up. His barrel was built from strong Russian oak and fitted with straps that would lock his arms in place. To keep himself weighed down, he tied a heavy anvil to his feet. Even those used to watching dangerous stunts could not believe he trusted such a risky setup. The only safety measure he accepted was a small tank of oxygen. He did not even wear a helmet, choosing padded clothing instead. Early on July 11, 1920, he decided to start quietly before police could interfere. Around 8:10 in the morning, he climbed into the barrel at Snyder's Point, located nearly 3 miles upstream. The current pulled him forward toward the thunder of the falls. Bobby Leach turned away, convinced that he was about to witness death. At about 8:55 in the morning, the barrel reached the brink and dropped into the powerful water beneath it. The impact was immediate and brutal. The anvil smashed straight through the bottom of the barrel, dragging Stevens into the depths with unstoppable force. For a long time, the broken remains of the barrel remained hidden in the swirling water at the base of the falls. When the pieces finally surfaced, searchers found only one part of him still inside. His right arm stayed strapped tightly in place. The tattoo on it read, "Forget-me-not Annie." Annie was the name of his wife. That arm was later buried in an unmarked grave at Drummond Hill Cemetery in Niagara Falls in Ontario. Charles Stevens became remembered as the first daredevil who died while trying to defeat the falls. Number 3. A doomed boat ride. On a warm afternoon in July of 1960, a 7-year-old boy named Roger Woodward and his 17-year-old sister Deanne joined their family friend, 40-year-old James Honeycutt, for what was supposed to be a pleasant boat ride across the upper Niagara River. Honeycutt worked as a contractor at the hydro project run by the Niagara Parks Commission, and he often took the children out on the water. Their parents trusted him because he had never given them a reason to worry. The boat was a 14-foot aluminum craft with a small outboard motor that he knew how to handle. They began their trip about 5 miles upstream of the Horseshoe Falls, where Honeycutt lived in a trailer along the American shoreline. For most of the ride, the current seemed predictable. Then the river began pulling stronger. Around 1 mile before the drop, Honeycutt noticed trouble. He tried to turn the boat towards safety, but the motor suddenly failed. The propeller pin had snapped and left them without power. Honeycutt grabbed the oars and rowed with everything he had. The current ignored his effort and dragged them closer to the chaos ahead. He told Roger and Deanne to put on their life preservers. He never managed to secure one for himself. Closer to the edge, the powerful waves flipped the boat over. The crash of the water separated Deanne from Roger and Honeycutt. She clung to the overturned boat, fighting to breathe as the water swallowed her again and again. When she resurfaced, she spotted 2 men on the shore. One was John Hayes, a truck driver from Vauxhall in New Jersey. The other was a tourist named John Quattrochi from Pensgrove in New Jersey. Hayes reached for her hand, gripping only her fingers while Quattrochi rushed to help. With all their strength, they pulled her to safety on Terrapin Point in Goat Island. Roger and Honeycutt were dragged toward the roaring drop. Honeycutt held Roger tightly, but the force of the water tore them apart as they passed over the crest. Roger plunged into the 180-foot deep pool below. His shoes were ripped from his feet, yet his small size and the life jacket kept him clear of the deadly rocks. At 12:55 in the afternoon, the Maid of the Mist tourboat crew found him bouncing in the waves. A life ring saved him, and he was rushed to a hospital in Ontario with only cuts and bruises. Deanne recovered from shock soon after in a hospital across the border. Honeycutt, on the other hand, never resurfaced alive. It took 3 days before his body was found a quarter mile downstream. Number 2. A mother's worst nightmare. People visit Niagara Falls expecting excitement, but the truth is that some days end in silence and panic rather than joy. In the summer of 1981, a young family from Toronto arrived on the Canadian side, ready for a simple outing. Dunya Sayeg was 28 years old and had left Lebanon with her husband Rafik nearly 8 years earlier. Together, they hoped for a day that would distract them from the challenges of building a new life. Mist carried through the air like cool smoke from the river below. The roar of Horseshoe Falls surrounded everyone who came close. Dunya held her baby boy Hesham tightly against her chest. He was only 2 months old and had been born with a respiratory condition that often made her anxious. Her doctor had given her medication to help her stay calm because she constantly worried something would go wrong with his health. Friends later said she almost never put him down. Rafiq stepped away to buy film for their camera so he could capture family memories. Dunya stood just a short distance from the point where the river drops more than 160 feet. The stone railing was about 3 feet high, which allowed visitors to look over, but still protected them from the rushing water. Hesham rested in a blanket while Dunya watched the current move faster than she expected. Then everything changed in only a moment. Witnesses said she suddenly looked unsteady. She put one hand to her head and said she felt dizzy. While she tried to steady herself, Hesham slipped from her arms. Screams burst from nearby visitors as the tiny infant was swept instantly toward the drop where nearly 750,000 gallons of water fell every second. The power of that fall leaves almost no chance for survival. Dunya screamed his name and tried to run toward the edge, but people pulled her back. She was taken to a hospital where doctors sedated her because the shock was too much for her to handle. Search teams checked the base of the falls, but the currents were violent and filled with sharp rocks. Authorities warned that the baby's body might never be recovered. That prediction became reality. Police at first believed her grief. Then they asked harder questions. Officers performed a test using a 12-pound doll, which they claimed made them doubt what she had said. Dunya was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The case moved into court where her lawyer, Edward Greenspan, argued that she was a loving mother who always cared for her children. The judge said the police test had problems and that no one saw the key moment. The charge was dismissed. Dunya walked free, though nothing could restore the child she lost. Number 1. Robert Aarons. The loud rush of water at Niagara Falls can drown out almost any sound. Yet on a quiet afternoon, one man made sure people saw him before the river pulled him forward. Visitors near Prospect Point noticed a man in the chilly water. He was waving, not in panic, almost like he wanted attention. His name was Robert Aarons. He was 56 years old from Tonawanda. By the time anyone realized what was happening, the powerful current had already taken control. The date was the 30th of May, 1985. Crowds watched the river carry him closer and closer, while the roar of the American Falls grew heavier. Some thought maybe he would reach a safe spot. Others understood that once the current takes you, there is no real way back. A Buffalo news crew from WGRZ-TV happened to be in the area working on a different piece. Their cameras were already rolling. Suddenly, they found themselves capturing a terrifying moment that nobody on the scene would ever forget. Police responded right away. They located his vehicle in a nearby parking area. It had been flagged earlier because Aarons had been reported missing. Officers and rescue teams hoped they would find him alive somewhere downriver. They searched the lower Niagara River by boat and along the shoreline. Turbulent water made everything harder. Even trained divers know how unforgiving that drop can be. Despite the effort, nothing was recovered. His body never surfaced. The tape that showed his final moments was broadcast once. Then the station decided not to show it again. People who work around Niagara Falls know its beauty pulls in millions every year. They also know how quickly excitement can turn into tragedy. The river does not slow down. It does not stop for anyone. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.